You stupid clumsy. Derek's hand flew up and Emma's body reacted before her mind could catch up, flinching so hard she stumbled backward into the kitchen counter. Her shoulder blade connected with the granite edge, sending a sharp pain through her back. Derek froze, his hand still raised, his face twisted with that familiar rage that had slowly consumed the man she'd married. But something shifted in his expression. Not guilt. Never guilt. Something more like calculation. Look at you, he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet tone. Pathetic. You actually think I'd waste my energy hitting you? Emma's hands trembled as she gripped the counter behind her. The dinner she'd spent 2 hours preparing was burning in the oven now, filling the apartment with acrid smoke. She'd made his favorite, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables, trying, like she always tried, to somehow fix whatever was broken between them. I'm sorry, she whispered, hating herself for apologizing when she hadn't done anything wrong. But that's what you did when you lived with Derek Patterson. You apologized for existing, for breathing, for taking up space in your own home. You're always sorry. Derek lowered his hand and straightened his tie, the expensive silk one she'd bought him for their 2nd anniversary, back when she still believed things might get better. I have a business dinner, clean this mess up, and Emma... He paused at the door, his blue eyes cold. My colleagues are coming over Saturday. Try not to embarrass me this time. The door slammed, leaving Emma alone in their $1,000-a-month apartment that felt more like a prison than a home. She slid down the kitchen cabinet until she was sitting on the floor, her arms wrapped around her knees, trying to remember when she'd become this person. This scared, small version of herself who flinched at raised hands and apologized for breathing. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands, expecting another message from Derek listing everything she'd done wrong that day. Instead, it was from Kara, her best friend from college, the one person who'd refused to let Derek isolate her completely. Coffee tomorrow, please? I miss your face. Emma typed back quickly before she could second-guess herself. Yes. Morning? 10 a.m. That place on 5th. Don't cancel on me again. Emma wouldn't cancel. She'd find a way to make it work, even if it meant enduring Derek's interrogation about where she'd been and who she'd talked to. Because sitting here on this kitchen floor, surrounded by broken glass and spilled wine and the smoke of another ruined dinner, she realized something with stunning clarity. She was drowning, and she needed help before she forgot how to swim entirely. She stood up, grabbed the broom, and started sweeping up the glass. As she worked, her mind drifted to a memory from 8 months ago, the night that had changed something fundamental inside her, even though she'd tried desperately to pretend it hadn't. The charity gala. Derek's firm had required attendance, and Emma had worn the emerald green dress Derek approved of because it was elegant but not attention-seeking. They'd mingled with his colleagues, and Emma had perfected her role, the quiet, supportive wife who smiled at the right moments and never said anything interesting enough to steal focus from her husband. Then she'd literally collided with him. She'd been returning from the restroom, not watching where she was going, and walked straight into a wall of solid muscle and expensive cologne. Hands had caught her arms, steadying her, and she looked up into the most striking gray eyes she'd ever seen. I'm so sorry, she'd gasped. I wasn't looking. No harm done. His voice was deep, with the faintest hint of an accent she couldn't quite place. European, maybe. Something that suggested he'd grown up speaking multiple languages. Are you all right? He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a movie screen. Sharp jawline, strong features, and those eyes that seemed to see right through the careful mask she wore. He was dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her car, and something about the way he carried himself suggested danger wrapped in expensive fabric. I'm fine, she'd said quickly, stepping back. His hands had released her immediately, but she could still feel the warmth of them on her arms. Thank you. Victor. He'd extended his hand. Victor Kozlov. Emma. She'd shaken his hand, acutely aware of Derek somewhere in the ballroom, probably already wondering where she'd gone. Emma Patterson. A pleasure, Emma Patterson. He'd smiled then, and it had transformed his entire face from intimidating to almost kind. Try to avoid any more walls tonight. She'd laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. Then Derek's hand had clamped on her shoulder, possessive and tight. There you are, honey. Derek's voice had been all artificial warmth. I was looking for you. Victor's eyes had shifted to Derek, and something had flickered across his face. Something that looked almost like recognition, or maybe assessment. The way a predator might size up potential prey. Your wife and I quite literally ran into each other, Victor had said smoothly. I was just making sure she wasn't injured. I'm sure she's fine. Emma's tougher than she looks. Derek's fingers had dug into her shoulder. Aren't you, honey? Yes, Emma had whispered, feeling Victor's gaze on her face. Those gray eyes too perceptive. Seeing too much. Well then. Victor had handed her a business card, his expression unreadable. In case you need anything. Anything at all. The card had simply read, Victor Kozlov, followed by a phone number. No company name, no title, nothing to indicate what he did or why she might need to contact him. Derek had plucked it from her fingers the moment Victor walked away. Who the hell was that? Derek had hissed. I don't know. I bumped into him. Stay away from men like that, Emma. Do you understand me? Whatever he is, he's dangerous. For once, Derek had been right about something. Everything about Victor Kozlov had screamed danger. But as the months passed and Emma's life with Derek grew smaller and darker, she'd found herself thinking about those gray eyes and that business card more often than she should. She'd never called the number. She'd never even written it down. Derek had thrown the card away that same night. But sometimes, in her darkest moments, she wondered what might have happened if she had. Now, standing in her kitchen sweeping up glass from another one of Derek's rages, Emma made a decision. Tomorrow, after coffee with Kara, she would call a lawyer. She would ask about divorce, about protecting herself, about escape routes for women who'd lost themselves in marriages that had turned toxic. She didn't know it yet, but tomorrow would change everything. Because Victor Kozlov hadn't forgotten about the sad-eyed woman in the green dress who'd flinched at her husband's touch. And he had resources that most people couldn't even imagine. Men like Victor Kozlov didn't believe in coincidences, and they definitely didn't believe in leaving unfinished business unfinished. The coffee shop on Fifth Avenue was Emma's favorite, a small corner place with mismatched chairs and baristas who actually remembered your name. She arrived 10 minutes early, ordered a latte she probably wouldn't drink, and sat by the window watching the street. Kara swept in at exactly 10 o'clock. Her red hair wild from the wind, her smile bright enough to shame the autumn sun. She'd been Emma's roommate in college, the bold one who'd dragged Emma to parties and convinced her that life was meant to be lived loudly. They'd been inseparable once, before Derek. You look terrible, Kara said, sliding into the chair across from Emma. No preamble, no polite small talk. That was Kara, brutally honest and fiercely loving in equal measure. Good morning to you too. I'm serious, Em. Kara reached across the table and grabbed Emma's hand. You've lost weight. You've got circles under your eyes, and you're doing that thing where you sit with your shoulders hunched like you're trying to take up less space. Emma tried to pull her hand back, but Kara held on. I'm fine, just tired. You're not fine. You haven't been fine since you married that. Kara stopped herself, took a breath. I'm sorry. I promised myself I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't push. But Emma, I'm scared for you. Something cracked inside Emma's chest. Maybe it was hearing someone say out loud what she'd been thinking every day for months. Maybe it was the genuine fear in Kara's voice. Maybe it was just that she was so tired of pretending. I'm leaving him, Emma whispered. The words felt enormous, terrifying, like stepping off a cliff into darkness. I'm calling a lawyer today. Kara's eyes filled with tears. Thank God, Emma. Do you have somewhere safe to go? I'll figure it out. Maybe a hotel at first, then... You'll stay with me, don't even argue. My apartment is small, but it's yours for as long as you need it. They talked for 2 hours. Kara gave her the name of a lawyer who specialized in difficult divorces. They made a plan. Emma would gather important documents, open a separate bank account, pack a bag of essentials, and hide it at Kara's apartment. They'd do it carefully, strategically, because Derek was the type of man who'd make her pay for leaving. Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Fragile and tentative, but real. She was so focused on her conversation with Kara that she didn't notice the black Mercedes parked across the street, or the gray-eyed man sitting in the back seat watching her through the window with an expression of cold calculation. Viktor Kozlov had built an empire on information. He knew things about people before they knew them about themselves. He knew, for instance, that Emma Patterson had finally reached her breaking point. He knew because he'd been watching her for 8 months, ever since that charity gala when he'd looked into her frightened eyes and recognized something he'd seen in his own mother's face years ago, before his father's business rivals had solved their family problem with a car bomb. He'd made inquiries about Derek Patterson. What he'd learned had made him want to break the man's neck. Financial fraud, a gambling problem, 2 previous girlfriends who'd filed restraining orders that mysteriously disappeared. Derek was a coward who preyed on women and hid behind his father's law firm connections. Viktor could have destroyed Derek's life with a phone call. He'd considered it. But Emma Patterson wasn't just a charity case to assuage his conscience. She was something else, something that had gotten under his skin and stayed there. Boss? His driver, Alexei, spoke in Russian. Should we move? Not yet. Viktor watched Emma through the window, noting the way she laughed at something her red-haired friend said, the first genuine smile he'd seen on her face in months of surveillance. Let her have this moment. You're too soft sometimes. And you're too much of a romantic, Alexei. I'm not rescuing a damsel in distress. I'm eliminating a problem before it becomes more complicated. Sure, boss, whatever you say. Viktor ignored him. He had people watching Derek Patterson, too. The man was spiraling, gambling debts mounting, his father threatening to cut him off, his carefully constructed life falling apart. Men like Derek became most dangerous when they were cornered, and Viktor would be damned if he let Emma Patterson pay the price for her husband's failures. His phone buzzed, a text from one of his contacts at the courthouse. Derek Patterson just filed a motion to freeze joint bank accounts. Probably figured out she's planning to leave. Viktor's jaw tightened. The bastard was already moving to trap her, to make sure she had no resources to escape. Classic abuser playbook. Alexei, I need you to do something for me. Name it. I want Emma Patterson's bank account moved to an offshore account she can access. I want her rent paid up for 6 months on a secure apartment in her friend's building. And I want Derek Patterson to wake up tomorrow morning with some very serious problems that have nothing to do with his wife. How serious? Not permanent, but educational. He needs to understand that there are consequences for his actions. Alexei grinned. I'll make some calls. Viktor watched Emma leave the coffee shop, hugging her friend goodbye, and something twisted in his chest. He'd spent 20 years building walls around himself, becoming the kind of man people feared, the kind of man who could order violence with the same casual tone he used to order dinner. He'd told himself those walls were necessary, that attachment was weakness, that caring about people made you vulnerable. Then he'd met a woman in a green dress who flinched at her husband's touch, and all those careful walls had started to crack. Emma made it home before Derek, which meant she had maybe an hour to gather some documents. Her hands shook as she opened the filing cabinet in Derek's study, pulling out their marriage certificate, her birth certificate, her social security card. She photographed bank statements and credit card bills, creating evidence she might need. She was so focused on her task that she didn't hear the door open behind her. What are you doing? Emma spun around, clutching the papers to her chest. Derek stood in the doorway, his face cold, his eyes calculating. I needed my birth certificate for what? He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. For the lawyer you met with today. Emma's blood turned to ice. Don't lie to me! His voice exploded through the room. You think I'm stupid? You think I don't have friends who keep me informed? He'd been having her followed. Of course he had. Emma backed up until she hit the desk, nowhere left to go. Derek, please, you want to leave me? After everything I've done for you? After I saved you from that pathetic little life you were living? He was advancing on her now, his face flushed with rage. You're nothing without me. You understand that? Nothing. Emma's phone was in her pocket. If she could just reach it, maybe call for help. Derek's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, twisting it until she cried out in pain. The papers scattered across the floor. You're not going anywhere, he said, his voice deadly quiet now. You're my wife. You belong to me. And tomorrow we're going to have a long conversation about what happens to women who betray their husbands. He shoved her aside and walked out, leaving Emma crumpled on the floor of his study, her wrist throbbing, her mind racing. She had to get out. Tonight. Now. Before Derek decided that emotional abuse wasn't enough anymore. She waited until she heard his bedroom door slam. They'd been sleeping in separate rooms for months, then grabbed her phone with shaking hands. She couldn't call 911. Derek's father knew half the cops in the city. She couldn't call Kara and put her friend in danger. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Then, almost without thinking, she opened her old emails and searched for Victor Kozlov's name. She'd looked him up once, months ago, in a moment of weakness. Found his company website, his legitimate real estate development business that was probably a front for something much less legal. She found his number and typed a text before she could second-guess herself. This is Emma Patterson. We met at a charity gala 8 months ago. I don't know why I'm texting you. I don't know if you'll even remember me. But you said if I needed anything, I need help. I need help, and I don't know where else to turn. She hit send and immediately regretted it. This was insane. She didn't even know this man. He was probably a criminal. Derek had been right about that, at least. Men who radiated that much danger and dressed in suits that expensive weren't running legitimate businesses. Her phone buzzed 30 seconds later. I remember you, Emma. Where are you right now? At home, but I can't stay here. He knows I was planning to leave. I'm scared. Address. She sent it, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Pack a bag, essentials only. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't let him see you packing. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you. 20 minutes, Emma. Be ready. Emma moved like she was in a dream. She grabbed a duffel bag from the back of her closet, threw in clothes, toiletries, the documents she'd managed to save. She changed into jeans and a sweater, comfortable shoes. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. What was she doing? She was running away with a man she'd met once, a dangerous man who probably had connections to organized crime. But as she heard Derek moving around in his room, heard the clink of glass that meant he was drinking, she knew she didn't have a choice. Dangerous man she didn't know, or dangerous man she'd married. At least with Victor, she was choosing her own risk. Exactly 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Outside, black Mercedes. Emma took a breath, grabbed her bag, and walked out of her apartment. She didn't look back. If she looked back, she might lose her nerve. The Mercedes was idling at the curb. Before she could reach it, the back door opened and Victor stepped out. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, imposing, those gray eyes that seemed to see everything. He took her bag without a word and put it in the trunk. Get in, he said quietly. Emma slid into the back seat. The leather was soft. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and something darker. Gunpowder, maybe. Or the particular scent of danger. Victor sat beside her and nodded to the driver. Take us home, Alexei. As the car pulled away from the curb, Emma watched her apartment building disappear. She'd lived there for 3 years. She'd thought it was her home. Now it just looked like a cage she'd finally escaped. Are you hurt? Victor's voice was soft, but there was steel underneath it. My wrist. He twisted it. But I'm okay. Let me see. Emma held out her hand. Victor took it carefully, his fingers gentle as he examined her wrist. His touch was nothing like Derek's. There was strength there, but also control, care. It's not broken, but it will bruise. He looked up at her, and something blazed in those gray eyes. Did he do this often? Not the physical stuff. Not usually. Mostly it was just words. Control. Making me feel small. That's still abuse, Emma. I know. Her voice broke. I know that now. I just didn't want to admit it. I kept thinking if I just tried harder, if I just... Stop. Victor's hand tightened slightly on hers. None of this is your fault. Do you understand me? Men like your husband, they're predators. They choose their victims carefully. They isolate them, break them down piece by piece until they don't recognize themselves anymore. But you got out. That takes strength most people don't have. Emma felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't feel strong. I feel terrified. Fear and strength aren't opposites. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you're scared and ask for help anyway. He released her hand and pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, an actual cloth handkerchief, like something from another era. Here. Thank you. Emma wiped her eyes. I don't understand why you're helping me. You don't even know me. I know enough. Victor leaned back against the seat, his profile sharp in the passing streetlights. I know you deserve better than what you've had, and I know that sometimes the universe puts people in your path for a reason. Do you believe in the universe having reasons? I believe in taking care of my own. And as of tonight, Emma Patterson, you're under my protection, which means Derek doesn't get to hurt you anymore. There was something final in his tone, something that made Emma shiver. What are you going to do to him? Nothing he doesn't deserve, but you don't need to worry about details. That's my problem now, not yours. They drove in silence for a while. Emma watched the city pass by through tinted windows, trying to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. This morning she'd been a trapped woman planning a careful escape. Tonight she was in a car with a man who radiated danger, driving to an unknown destination, having just burned down her entire life. Where are we going? She finally asked. My home. It's secure, private. You'll have your own room, your own space. Alexei's wife, Marina, lives there too. She runs the household. You won't be alone with just men, if that's what you're worried about. And then what? I can't hide forever. No, but you can hide long enough to get your feet under you. Long enough to file for divorce without your husband blocking your access to money or intimidating you into staying. Long enough to remember who you were before Derek Patterson tried to break you. Emma looked at Victor's profile, trying to understand him. Why do you care so much? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, haunted. My mother was married to a man who hurt her. Not physically. My father loved her, in his way. But his business, his lifestyle, it trapped her. She had no way out. When his enemies came for him, they came for all of us. She died protecting me. I was 12. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But I learned something that day. I learned that women shouldn't have to sacrifice themselves for men's choices. And I learned that if you have the power to help someone, you use it. Otherwise, what's the point of power at all? The car turned onto a private road, winding up into the hills outside the city. They passed through a security gate that opened automatically, drove another quarter-mile through carefully landscaped grounds, and finally stopped in front of a massive house that looked like something from a European fairy tale. Stone walls, ivy-covered turrets, warm light spilling from tall windows. You live here? Emma breathed. When I'm in the city, yes. Come on. Marina will want to feed you. She thinks food solves all problems. Victor helped her out of the car, retrieved her bag, and led her up stone steps to a massive wooden door. It opened before they reached it, revealing a small woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. This is Emma, Victor said in English, though Emma suspected they normally spoke Russian. She'll be staying with us for a while. Of course. Marina immediately pulled Emma into a hug, which was so unexpected that Emma almost started crying again. You look exhausted, dear. Come, I'll show you to your room. You must be hungry? I'm not really. You'll eat, Victor said firmly. Then you'll rest. Tomorrow we'll deal with the practical things. Tonight you're safe. That's all that matters. Emma let Marina lead her through a house that was somehow both intimidating and welcoming. All high ceilings and expensive art, but also soft couches and warm lighting that made it feel like an actual home. Her room was beautiful. A huge 4-poster bed with soft linens, a window seat overlooking gardens she couldn't see in the darkness, her own bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Clothes in the closet should fit, Marina said. Victor had me order some things earlier today. I hope I guessed your size correctly. He ordered clothes before Emma stopped, understanding. He was planning this. Victor plans everything. It's why he's good at what he does. But don't worry, he's a good man, despite what people say. He'll take care of you. Marina left her alone. Emma sat on the edge of the enormous bed, trying to process the fact that Victor Kozlov had apparently been preparing to rescue her. How long had he been watching? How much did he know about her situation? Part of her should probably be disturbed by that. Instead, she felt something that might have been relief. Someone had been paying attention. Someone had seen her drowning and thrown her a lifeline. She showered, washing away the feeling of Derek's hands on her wrist, washing away 3 years of feeling small and scared. She put on the pajamas she found in the closet, expensive silk that fit perfectly, and climbed into bed. For the first time in years, Emma fell asleep without worrying about whether she'd locked the bedroom door. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she panicked, not recognizing where she was. Then the previous night came rushing back, Derek's rage, the escape, Victor's gray eyes and gentle hands examining her bruised wrist. She was in Victor Kozlov's house. She'd run away from her husband into the protection of a man who was almost certainly a criminal. Her life had officially become completely insane. There was a knock on the door, then Marina's cheerful voice. Emma, are you awake? I have breakfast. Come in. Marina entered with a tray laden with food. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, yogurt, that coffee she'd smelled. Victor had to go out for business, but he said to tell you you're free to use the house, the grounds, whatever you need. There's a library downstairs if you like to read, a gym if you want to work out. Or you can just rest. Where did he go? Marina's smile turned slightly predatory. To have a conversation with your husband. Emma's stomach dropped. What kind of conversation? The kind where Victor explains that you're not to be contacted, bothered, or intimidated anymore. Don't worry. He won't hurt him. Much. Marina. Eat your breakfast, dear. Some things are better not to know about. Emma picked at her food, her appetite gone. What had she done? She'd set a dangerous man on her husband, and no matter how much Derek deserved consequences, she didn't want blood on her hands. She was pacing her room an hour later when her phone buzzed. Derek's number. Her hand shook as she answered. Hello? You think you're clever? Derek's voice was tight with fury and something else, fear. You think running to some Russian mobster is going to solve your problems? Derek, He was here, at my office. Do you know what he told me? He said if I ever come near you again, if I even think about you too long, he'll destroy everything I've ever worked for. He has files, Emma. Files on every illegal thing I've ever done. He said he'll send them to the bar association, to the police, to my father. He'll ruin me. Good, Emma thought, surprising herself. Then I suggest you leave me alone. You're my wife. I'm filing for divorce, today, if possible, and you're not going to fight it. You're going to give me everything I ask for, because if you don't, Victor will release those files, and we both know you've done enough illegal things to get disbarred at minimum. There was silence on the other end. Then Derek's voice, smaller now, defeated. Who the hell is he? What does he want with you? I don't know, Emma said honestly. But I'd rather belong to a dangerous man who's never hurt me than stay with a safe man who hurts me every day. She hung up before Derek could respond. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear this time. From adrenaline. From power. She'd just threatened her husband. She'd just drawn a line in the sand and dared him to cross it. It felt incredible. "Emma?" She spun around. Victor stood in her doorway, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. His expression was carefully neutral. "I heard you on the phone," he said. "Are you all right?" "Did you threaten him? Do you really have files?" Yes to both questions. "How? How do you have information about his illegal activities?" Victor stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Because I make it my business to know things about people, especially people who hurt those under my protection. Your husband has been committing insurance fraud for 2 years. Small-time stuff, but enough to lose his law license. He also has gambling debts with some very unpleasant people. I bought those debts last night. You bought his debts? Yes, which means he now owes me. And I'm a much more reasonable creditor than the men he was previously dealing with. As long as he stays away from you and gives you a clean divorce, he has nothing to worry about." Emma sank onto the edge of the bed. "I don't know whether to thank you or be terrified of you. Both would be appropriate." Victor moved to the window, looking out at the grounds. "I should be honest with you, Emma. I'm not a good man. I'm not a hero from one of those romance novels Marina likes to read. I do things that would make you lose sleep at night. I hurt people who cross me. I break laws regularly. I exist in a world of violence and moral compromise. Then why are you helping me?" He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "Because sometimes, even men like me need to believe we're capable of doing something right. Because you deserve better than what you've had. And because when I saw you at that gala 8 months ago, when you looked up at me with those terrified eyes, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Something that made me want to be the kind of man who could deserve you." The air between them felt electric. Emma stood up, moving closer to him without consciously deciding to. "You've been watching me. For 8 months. Yes, that should scare me. Should it?" Victor's voice was soft, dangerous. "But it doesn't, does it?" "No." Emma was close enough now that she could see the stubble on his jaw, the way his pupils dilated as he looked at her. "It should feel like a violation, like stalking. But instead it feels like someone finally saw me. Like someone cared enough to pay attention. Emma." The way he said her name was almost a warning. "You've just escaped an abusive marriage. You're vulnerable. The last thing you need is me complicating things. Maybe complications are exactly what I need. Maybe I'm tired of simple, safe choices that turn out to be dangerous anyway." She reached up, her fingers touching his face. He flinched slightly, as if her touch surprised him. "You said I deserve better. Maybe better isn't safe. Maybe better is honest. Real. Even if it's complicated." Victor caught her hand, holding it against his face. "If we do this, if we explore whatever this is, I need you to understand what you're getting into. My life isn't normal. I have enemies. People who'd hurt you just to get to me. I can protect you, but I can't make you safe. Not really. Not completely." "I've never been safe," Emma said. "I've just been pretending to be. At least with you, I know the danger is real. I'm not lying to myself about it." He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the careful, controlled kisses she'd shared with Derek. This was fire and hunger, and months of restraint breaking apart. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and she made a sound she didn't recognize. Need and relief and surrender all mixed together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. "This is insane." "I know. You should run from me, from all of this." "I'm done running." Emma kissed him again, softer this time. "I'm done letting fear make my decisions. Maybe this is crazy. Maybe I'll regret it. But for the first time in years, I feel alive. I feel like myself. And if that comes with complications, then I'll deal with them. You're sure? No, Emma admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Victor smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face. You're braver than you think you are. Or stupider. Maybe both. He kissed her forehead. Come on. We have work to do. Lawyers to call. Your old life to systematically dismantle. And then, if you're still sure about this, we're going out to dinner. Somewhere expensive where I can show you off and watch men realize they'll never have a chance with you. Possessive much? Emma, I drove 8 hours through the night once, back when I first started watching you. You and Derek had gone to his father's house upstate. I sat in a car all night in the freezing cold, just to make sure he didn't hurt you. So yes, I'm possessive. I'm obsessive, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Emma should probably be disturbed by that. Instead, she felt wanted in a way she'd never experienced before. What happened that night? Nothing. You were fine. He yelled at you about something. I couldn't hear what, but he didn't touch you. I left before dawn. Victor's jaw tightened. But if he had hurt you that night, I would have killed him. And I want you to understand that about me. I'm not a man who makes empty threats. When I say I'll protect you, I mean it absolutely. I believe you. They spent the afternoon with Victor's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine who specialized in difficult divorces and didn't seem even slightly fazed by the fact that her client was probably a crime lord. She took notes while Emma explained her marriage, asked pointed questions about Derek's finances and behavior, and finally sat back with a satisfied smile. This will be easy, Catherine declared. We'll file tomorrow. Given the evidence Mr. Kozlov has provided, she gestured at a thick folder Emma hadn't seen before. Your husband will be motivated to cooperate. I'd estimate you'll be divorced in 3 months, maybe less. That fast? When the opposing party has strong incentive not to fight, things move quickly. Mr. Kozlov has ensured your husband has very strong incentive. What evidence? Emma looked at Victor. Bank records showing his fraud. Photos of him with other women. He's been cheating on you for 2 years, by the way. Documented evidence of his gambling. Everything Catherine needs to ensure you get what you deserve. Emma should probably object to Victor's invasion of her husband's privacy, but Derek had given up any right to her protection when he'd thrown that wine glass at her head. Thank you, she said simply. That evening, Victor took her to a restaurant that didn't have prices on the menu, where the staff treated him like royalty, and everyone else like fortunate peasants allowed to share his space. Emma wore a dress Marina had provided, deep blue silk that made her eyes look brighter, and for the first time in years, she felt beautiful. You're staring, she told Victor over dessert. I'm appreciating. There's a difference. People are looking at us. Let them look. Let them wonder how I got so lucky. Victor reached across the table and took her hand. Emma, I need you to know something. This isn't just about rescuing you. This isn't some hero complex or savior fantasy. I'm drawn to you. I have been since the moment we met. You're intelligent, strong, beautiful. You survived years of abuse and still had the courage to reach out for help. That takes extraordinary strength. I don't feel extraordinary. I feel broken. Broken things can be repaired, made stronger at the fracture points. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I'm broken too, you know. My life has made me hard, cynical. I stopped believing in things like love and trust years ago, but then I met you, and suddenly I wanted to believe again. Emma felt tears prickling her eyes. This is happening so fast. We can slow down. We can take this at whatever pace you need. No. Emma squeezed his hand. I don't want to slow down. I've been moving at Derek's pace for 3 years, being careful, being small. I want to move at my own pace now. And my pace says that life is short and uncertain, and if I want something, I should reach for it. And what do you want, Emma? You, she said simply. I want you. I want this. Whatever this becomes. They left the restaurant wrapped around each other, and for the first time since she'd flinched away from Derek's raised hand, Emma felt whole. 3 months later, Emma stood in a courtroom watching a judge sign her divorce papers. Derek sat on the other side of the room, diminished somehow, smaller than he'd been in her memory. He didn't even look at her as the judge declared their marriage dissolved. Emma felt nothing. No sadness, no relief. Just a quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Outside the courthouse, Victor waited by his car, looking like Sin in another expensive suit. When Emma emerged, he smiled and opened his arms. She walked into them, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling his heart beat steady and strong against her cheek. "It's done," she said. "How do you feel?" "Free." "Good." Victor tilted her face up, his gray eyes serious. "Because I have something to ask you." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Emma's heart stopped. "Victor, let me say this first. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But I also know that I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He opened the box, revealing a ring that was somehow both elegant and bold, a diamond flanked by 2 gray stones the exact color of his eyes. "Emma Patterson, will you marry me? Will you take a chance on a dangerous man who loves you more than he thought he could love anyone?" Emma looked at the ring, at Victor's face, at the future stretching out before her. Uncertain, complicated, but hers. Completely hers. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Victor slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her right there on the courthouse steps, in front of lawyers and strangers, and anyone who cared to watch. And Emma kissed him back, claiming him just as surely as he was claiming her. Later, much later, they would face challenges. Victor's business would bring danger. Emma would have to learn to live in his world. There would be enemies and threats and moments when she questioned everything. But in that moment, standing on courthouse steps with a ring on her finger and a dangerous man's arms around her, Emma had never been more certain that she'd made the right choice. She'd flinched when Derek raised his hand, and that flinch had changed everything. It had set her free. It had led her to Victor, who'd driven 8 hours through the night just to make sure she was safe, who'd watched over her for months before she even knew she needed watching, who'd systematically dismantled her abusive husband's life to protect her. Was he a good man? Probably not by conventional standards, but he was good to her. He was good for her. And sometimes that was what mattered most. "Where to now?" Emma asked, looking up at the man who would become her husband. Victor smiled. "Anywhere you want. The whole world is open to you now." "Then let's go home," Emma said. "Let's go home and start our life together." They drove away from the courthouse, away from Emma's old life, toward a future neither of them could fully predict. But they were driving toward it together, and that made all the difference. 3 years later, Emma would stand in Victor's study, watching him work late into the night on something he wouldn't explain, some business dealing that probably wasn't entirely legal. She'd be 5 months pregnant with their first child, her hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly. And Victor would look up from his papers, see her standing there, and his whole face would soften with love. "Come here," he'd say, pulling her into his lap despite her protests that she was getting too big for that. "Tell me what you're thinking about." "That charity gala," she'd admit, "the night we met. I was thinking about how if I hadn't walked into you, if you hadn't given me that card, if I hadn't been brave enough to text you that night. But you did. You were brave. You saved yourself, Emma. I just gave you the tools to do it." "We saved each other," she'd correct him. "You said I made you believe in good things again." "You make me believe in everything," Victor would say, kissing her soundly. "You and this baby are my entire world. Everything I do, every decision I make, it's for you, to protect you, to give you the life you deserve." And Emma would believe him, because unlike Derek's promises, Victor's words were backed by action. Every single day he showed her through 1,000 small gestures that she was valued, protected, loved. But all of that was still to come. For now, on this sunny afternoon after her divorce was finalized, Emma simply sat in Victor's car, her hand in his, watching the city pass by through tinted windows. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. for watching over me, for protecting me, for giving me a second chance at life. Thank you for trusting me, Victor replied, for seeing past what I do to who I am, for being brave enough to let yourself be loved. Emma squeezed his hand, thinking about the woman she'd been 8 months ago. Scared, small, trapped. That woman was gone now, replaced by someone stronger. Someone who knew her own worth. Someone who'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous choice was the safest one, and sometimes the man everyone warned you about was exactly the man you needed. She'd flinched when Derek raised his hand, and that single moment of fear had led her here, to freedom, to love, to a future she was choosing for herself. It had been worth every terrifying second of the journey,